Hey, welcome back to my channel. All right, so it is that time of year where I have a couple of leases that I have expiring within the next 2 to 3 months. Now, this is in the case of rental arbitrage, right? So, what I like to do is when it's about time for leases to expire, I like to reevaluate my midterm rentals. By reevaluating my midterm rentals, then, and I'm only talking about the ones that are about to expire or the leases are about to expire. That allows me to make the decision of whether or not I need to keep this property or if I need to let the property go. So far, I have not had to let any properties go, so that's a good thing. But I have to go through this process to make sure I'm making the right decisions because I don't want to end up in a position where, I'm not making the money I need to make to cover my expenses and I'm losing in the business, right? That's not why we get in this business. So let me walk you through today how I evaluate my midterm rental. Okay. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is look at my numbers and make sure all of my numbers are accurate. Okay. So, what does that mean? Let me explain. I have two ways that I track my numbers. I have a accounting software that I use, and that's just kind of looking at the business overall. It gives me my profit and loss, and all of that kind of stuff, right? But I also have a spreadsheet where I break it down per property, what exactly is being spent, what is the income, and what are the expenses for that particular property. And I have a spreadsheet with tabs for each one of my properties. Every month, at the end of the month, I sit down with my bookkeeper and we go through that spreadsheet to make sure we're categorizing everything correctly. Now, there are some accounting softwares that do this for you. I believe QuickBooks does this for you, but that's not the accounting software I use. Plus, I prefer to do it this way. This is just my personal choice, just because I like to look at my numbers and it keeps me abreast of what's going on in my particular property. So, by me really sitting down and looking at this every month, I know, like, okay, I'm spending too much, or I need to pull back, or I might need to raise rates. Like, I know how to make different decisions month to month. Okay. All right. So when I say look at the numbers, make sure all of those numbers in my spreadsheet are correct and up to date. So as of right now, we are in the middle of the month. So my numbers are up to date as of the end of last month. Okay. I will do this current month at the end of the month, right? So they're up to date as of the end of last month, right? And again, like I said, I am doing this 2 to 3 months in advance. So I am just going to project out based off of my rents and my previous expenses what will happen in the next couple months. So let me pause here and say the reason why I choose to do this 2 to 3 months in advance is because I don't want to wait to the last minute to be under pressure to make a decision and make the wrong decision because, I'm trying to move too fast. The other part is that I don't want to catch my landlords by surprise. Things have been working very well with us and we have a good relationship. So, of course, they're already thinking I'm going to stay. So if I make a different decision, I want to let them know in advance that I will not be staying so that they can get prepared, because that means they will have a vacancy and they will have to fill the property and they will have to probably, do a few things to the property before the next person to come in and rent it, right? So I want to maintain these relationships. So I want to be on the up and up and make sure that we're all prepared. Okay. Now, let me go ahead and go back to my steps. So we talked about first, making sure your numbers are correct. Okay. You should be using some type of tracking system or spreadsheet or something to follow your numbers or track your numbers. Okay. So that is a must. And if you're not doing it, I'm telling you now to do it. All right. So, number two, I am going to review my income so far for the year. So I'm going to take a look at everything that has come in this year. And then I am going to take a look at my current leases to see with my guests to see when they are expiring. And then kind of project out what I'm going to get, towards the end or through the end of the lease. So at this moment, the properties that I am evaluating, most of the guests are staying pretty much until the end of my lease or close to the end of my lease, which is fine because if I choose not to renew the lease, it'll give me some time to get the property cleaned up, everything moved out and all of that stuff, right? So we're pretty good. It's one person whose lease ends in actually May, but she has already extended her lease. She may be extending again. I just haven't checked with her yet, so I'm not really worried about it. So we'll deal with that, but I'll just go ahead and kind of uh give an estimate, of what I could still receive, even if she does move out. Okay. So go ahead. I'm looking at my real numbers as far as the income up to date, and then I'm going to estimate what is coming to me for the next 2 to 3 months from those leases that I currently have in place. All right. Next, we're going to look at our expenses, and we're doing the same thing. We're looking at our expenses through the year up until this point, and then we're going to kind of just look at the certain expenses, not all. We're going to look at certain expenses and project those out for the remaining months. So when I say certain expenses, I'm talking about those fixed expenses. So rent, insurance, utilities, those are fixed expenses that aren't going anywhere, and they pretty much stay the same. Okay. So that's easy to take a look at and say, oh, okay, this is what I should expect to be spending out in expenses for the next couple months. Now, there are miscellaneous things that do happen. I'm not going to worry about that right now, because I know I have reserves to handle those types of things, right? So that is what I'm looking at next. So we're going to get a total income for 1 year, and we're going to get a total expense amount for the year. Okay. Next, we are going to basically just take those expenses and take it away from the income. Okay. So you have your income, you're going to subtract your expenses out. That should give you your estimated profit for the year. Let me pause here, okay? So this is where it's decision time. Now, if you look at your profit and it is not your desired profit, I need you to hold on for a minute before you make a decision. Remember, this is year one. This is year one for me, okay? So if it's year one for you, you have to consider your startup cost. So remember, you had to pay those deposits or first month's rent, 2 months rent, whatever you may have had to pay up front to acquire the property. You had setup costs, so you had to get your furniture, household good, everything you needed to set up the property, right? So in my case, I put most of that stuff on credit. So throughout this entire year, I paid off those credit cards with the revenue I received from the property, which is a good thing. That's what you should be able to do. So my profit on these particular units isn't as much as I would like to see as far as when I see the total number, but I have to keep that in mind. And I also have to keep in mind that I did pay myself from some of these units throughout the year. Now, I didn't pay myself every single month because my focus was paying off that credit first, but I did pay myself several times throughout this year. So I have to consider that as well. Okay. All right, so don't let that number scare you. Now, the other thing, if you see this profit and it's negative, you need to really, really take a look and see what has gone on, what's been happening. Okay. Now, if it's negative and you have not paid yourself, and you've paid all your bills and all of that stuff, you've been doing things the way they should be done, and you've been responsible with the money, then that may not be a good property. Okay. It may not be the right property for you, or you may need to take a look at your rates to see, okay, do I need to raise rates? Do I, what needs to happen here? Okay. Because you should be evaluating rates throughout the year to determine whether you need to raise them or lower them. Okay. To make sure your properties are being filled. If you are one of my students, you should know that. We talked about that. But if you're not, you just got a little tip, right? All right, so make sure you kind of really, really evaluate and see what is going on if you have a negative number. If you have a positive profit, that is good. Okay, like I said, it may not be your desired profit in year one, but remember, there's always year two. Okay, because you've paid off all of that stuff, all of those setup costs, and you've done all of that. Now, everything that comes to you in year two should be straight profit. Okay, so keep those things in mind when reevaluating your midterm rental. Now, I am going to do an example of this using some numbers so you guys can actually see what this looks like. I'm going to have that in my membership. So I have a rental revenue builders membership, right? So that is where I am housing tutorials of how to do all of these different things within the business. So if you're a visual person, like I'm a visual person and really need to sit down and look at an example, that's where that video would be. The link for that membership is down below in the description if you would like to join it and get some more information, get tutorials, get master classes, get more in-depth information, not just about midterm rentals, but about rentals in general, okay? So I am going to be talking more about long-term rentals, short-term rentals, and midterm rentals because I have experience in all of those things. And my goal is to make sure people who are just regular, everyday, average working people know that this is available to you, that you can do these things, that you can get into real estate investing. You can have your own rentals, whatever type of rental you choose to have. You can do that as long as you do it the right way. So just make sure you get your education so that you can make those right decisions and make money in your business. I hope this video was helpful to you guys, and I will be back to you with another video more about evaluating our midterm rentals to make sure you know whether or not you should continue to move forward or if you should do a hard stop, okay? All right, talk to you guys later, and make sure you like and subscribe. Bye.